Eric.
Haha.
Hello and welcome to the Jerich Show. I, as always, am Javvad Malik, and today we have got a new and improved co-host. It is the one and only CISO of Canon Europe, Mr. Quentyn Taylor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jav.
I say welcome. I've actually come and raided Quentyn's little office space to be with him today. Unfortunately, we couldn't completely get rid of Erich. So joining us is from across the pond, Erich Krohn. How you doing? Actually, no one cares. Right. So Quentyn, what are we talking about today?
So I thought we were going to talk today a little bit about SIM swap and the impacts that can have. We can also talk about FBI issued an alert about people using potentially camera doorbell footage to spy on the police. And I think the main topic I want to cover is this awesome information security magazine front cover. And it is great. It is great. And I kind of recognize, I mean, I'm not sure like who anyway, but there's a problem here, which is it's missing something. It's missing me. So if you want, I'll generate a special version of this one with my picture stuck in various places. So
you can do like a regional,
generate a special one.
Yeah, like a regional version, right, Quentyn?
So you know how like B-sides started off because like people didn't get their own. They find it tough to get into places like DEF CON or Black Hat to get speaking slots. So it was like, hey, we can all get together and we can talk about cool stuff that necessarily. So you could make your very own rejects version of Info Security.
I prefer B-sides. I prefer Info Security Magazine B-sides.
So it could be yourself. It could be Eric. It could be my good friend Andy. All these people on it who aren't ever asked.
Who are cruelly not there.
Yeah. So anyway, SIM swap.
Yeah, no. So SIM swap, everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows that it's basically where a criminal manages to convince a mobile phone company that they are you and get a brand new SIM allocated, which means they can take over your phone. And I wanted to give you a bit of a story about where this actually becomes really, really quite serious. A very good friend of mine had it happen to him recently. And thieves, now he did manage to get the money back, but thieves got over £80,000, wow. Which, to be honest, in today's day and age, this isn't big corporates we're talking here. Apparently, they're now starting to go after the smaller companies where the owner is the accountant, is the person on the tools as well, and the devastating impact this can have for companies. And it's interesting that in the US, Verizon have now starting to come up with some tools where potentially they can make it a lot more authentication is required and to prevent SIM swap attacks from occurring, because I think they're pretty much getting endemic no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has actually been a scourge for a long time for telecom providers, cellular providers. This is not something that's new, but it continues to happen, which is the frustrating piece. And I know a lot of people in the cryptocurrency markets, they use this, the text-based, like an SMS second factor to help secure their accounts. And so they've become very targeted attacks against SIM swapping, to the point that here in the US, I believe it was T-Mobile and AT&T were actually targeting, their reps were being targeted in even the independent stores because they had access to the tools to be able to do the SIM swap. So it's a big deal and obviously impacting a lot of people. Now, I like to say that doesn't mean MFA is dead or you shouldn't do it at all. You know, it adds that extra little bit of difficulty, but it's certainly not foolproof, as your friend found out, right?
No, and the impact can be absolutely ginormous. And I think that's the big difference, is when we're used to working in criminal attacks against big corporations that either have insurance or have a turnover such that amount of money in reality can be thought of as a blip and they'll make it back immediately. But really, it kind of brought it home to me when you're talking to a small business owner who's saying, that's our entire working capital for a small amount of time. So it really is quite serious. And then it was reported as well as when you start informing your suppliers to say, hey, be really careful, I've been a victim of SIM swap fraud. What did one of them do? They closed his account because they go, well, now you're a high business risk. And he's going, right, so are you trying to finish me off here? Because you closed my account, you're the main supplier of these things I need, and now you're saying I'm a credit risk, even though I'm not in any arrears with you. And they say, oh, sorry, computer says because you're a victim of crime, therefore you're a credit risk, therefore we don't extend any credit to you. So this kind of like tumbling effect can occur. And thankfully to him, we managed to get it all resolved. But it could be a really, really serious incident. And these are ordinary people. These are not InfoSec pros dealing with this. These aren't IT people. These are just ordinary people who are tradespeople.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that these ordinary people, they're told, hey, enable this and it will secure your account. So they're putting a lot of faith into the systems that are built there. So I think absolutely having those extra checks and controls on the supplier and the mobile phone providers end is critical, because it's such a common way of authentication now.
Yeah.
It's banks do it and I get it. It's convenient, it's easy, but it's not true two-factor. It's two-step authentication. If you want to get, I know. Yeah, Eric rolls his eyes because he doesn't get it. We have to simplify.
Well, I would argue that doesn't necessarily mean two-step. Honestly, it is two-factor, but it is not the most secure second factor. That would be my argument.
It's two-step because it's something you know and something you know, and it's not tied to that device.
Yes, you're right.
It is tied to the device, though, through the SIM card, and that's why the SIM swapping makes the difference. We may just have to agree to disagree on this.
No, we don't have to agree to disagree. We'll agree that you're wrong, but it's okay. I'll send you a diagram afterwards, and we can
remember that we're focusing on SIM swapping.
Yeah.
But if you've got a person on the inside working for the mobile phone shop, you can transfer a telephone number from SIM A to SIM B.
Yep.
So you don't even need to swap the SIM. You can just literally just divert the calls. And I think what people misunderstand is these attackers are really good, and they're set up to ready to rock and roll. So the instant they get it.
And some of the issues I was talking about with the T-Mobile, they were actually getting into the tools. They would swap it long enough to be able to intercept the code, and then they would swap it back to the phone. So the victim would absolutely not know that this had happened to them. So very, very, very tricky way of doing that.
And the victim would be found totally liable because as far as the third party is concerned, they would say there is no evidence of SIM swap. We send a code through to you, it comes through to your phone, therefore you are fully on the hook for all of these losses.
Yeah. And you make an interesting point about the attackers being more careful or more professional. And I just recently finished Jeff White's book. It's a fantastic read. It's called crime.com. And he goes through a lot of the history of hacking, starting from the I love you bug all the way up to modern days. And there was that fundamental shift where these things are no longer operated by hackers or quote unquote, or people who are just curious or people who may be looking to make a bit of money. The organized crime has moved in, and they're applying all of their techniques and all of their tradecraft that they've learned over the years to the digital realm. So that's why they are particularly malicious in their attacks.
That's very impressive. Not the book, but the fact that you can read.
Fair enough. Let's move on now. This is another story that you brought up. Let me bring it up.
Yeah, so this is about the FBI releasing an alert, and this is kind of ironic. They released an alert to warn police forces and FBI agents about people watching and being pre-alerted to the raid by a Ring doorbell. Because, of course, if you are assembling your mysterious, your universal key, your big door smasher outside, and your entire team, and apparently they were doing this, and a person they wished to apprehend was sitting inside going, there's movement at your door, and looked at the app and went, oh, yes, there'd be like 12 FBI agents fully armed and a door smasher. And they were just alerting people to the fact, or alerting their own people that, people might be aware if there's a Ring doorbell sitting there, people may be completely aware that you're standing outside. It kind of seems obvious, but what's ironic about this is that there have been allegations that potentially there's been back-end access to this footage granted to certain police departments. And that's the reason why they've been so vociferous in trying to push certain products into certain neighborhoods. And I was just saying to you just off camera, ironically, even right here in West London, and I don't believe this is the case here, but our local neighborhood watch has had a discount on certain doorbells, video doorbells, for the last 2 to 3 years. Now, there's then no allegation that they were obviously getting access to the footage at all, but they're pushing them out as an anti-crime feature.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know here they do have a thing where they want you to, or it's voluntary, but register that you do have a camera and this is what it covers. Just so that if they're then trying to investigate crime, they know who to phone up or who to email to ask for footage.
Right.
So ubiquitous surveillance cuts both ways.
Yeah, yeah. And it's super interesting because I know the focus here is on Ring, but there's so many cheaper or other brands that do exactly the same thing. There's got motion sensors on it. It'll trigger you.
Well, as you walked into this building here, there's a camera literally on the corner of that building here, surveilling the whole garden.
Yeah, that's why I was doing that.
Yeah.
to thwart the facial recognition. But yeah, I think it is ironic that the police are worried about that kind of thing when it could be anyone. I mean, back in the day, it would be like a little kid they'd put on the street corner. All my knowledge about America is from Hollywood movies, but there'd be a little kid
with a mobile phone.
Yeah, playing basketball, and then they'll like phone up and say, hey, Uncle Eric, the feds are here. So yeah, have you seen much of that? Do you have a Ring doorbell, Eric?
I do, and I have never seen a bunch of FBI agents outside of it. It is interesting here. Like we have there's a neighborhood program through Ring that allows you to look at like crime in the neighborhood. And you can easily share things around the area. And I see that on occasion where it's like, hey, can you identify this person? And sometimes it's the poor person just walking around door to door trying to sell you new windows or something else you don't need. But it's interesting to see that, they're using that as a sort of a neighborhood watch, if you will, in many ways. Now, technically, the difference, I think, between, let's say, using the Ring to capture motion and my cameras that I actually have outside, and I use what's called Blue Iris as a back end, and it will do like MQTT or other alerts if it sees motion. The difference is the ease of use and the ability to then gain access to those video clips in the cloud make the big difference there, because very easily my very same IP cameras could pick up something like that. Oh, look, it's a bunch of SWAT trucks in my front yard. It could alert me of that very easily through my home automation stuff. The difference is I still have all of the video here on premise. And so this is another actually situation where we don't always know where our information is going per se. And if you're saying the police departments are able to access some of this, what are the checks and balances involved in that? It's kind of like doing the ALPR, the automated license plate recognition parts. Who has access to that? Why do they need it? And is everybody aware that everybody has access to this? Those are all great questions brought up by this stuff.
Yeah. And there's this video I saw, and I think it was a bit of a parody one. It's not legit, but it's someone's saying, oh, on the iPhone, there's this feature like, hey, Siri, I'm being pulled over by the police. And then it kicks off a series of events. It's like, okay, like making the screen brightness down to 0, turning on recording, automatically texting your attorney, sending your GPS location. But I mean, it was sent as a joke, but I think it's such a...
I did see an app for that, actually, genuinely an app.
Right.
And it was designed to be that if you were being arrested, it would then say turn on the things, it would turn on recording and stream it up to the cloud.
Yeah.
And then it would also turn off face recognition and fingerprint recognition.
Right.
So that then they couldn't just hold the phone in front of your face to get it opened.
Yeah.
You'd have to put the code in. So that genuinely was an app on Apple on the App Store, at least at one stage.
Okay.
Around when the French protests were going on, that's when I saw it being pushed.
Right. And I think this kind of thing is easy to cobble together. So you could easily trigger. So even if it's, your Ring doorbell just tells you, you could say, okay, that looks like Fed. And then it's like, Alexa, the feds are here. And that would trigger off a whole series of events.
By the way, there is an Alexa just over there. So whatever Alexa, the feds are here does, she's going to talk in a minute.
I know. I did notice it. And that's why I specifically said Alexa. Yeah.
Well, there are actually good things that can come from these as well. Like in my home automation setup, I actually have it set up where if it detects motion at my front door, it automatically turns on my outside lights, the ones overhead right there and the ones up on my garage. So there are some cool things you can do with these motion detecting features. And we have seen some interesting things. Our neighborhood had a rash of younger kids running around ringing doorbells and taking off in the middle of the night. And of course, you get the picture of the kid going up on the doorbell now. And so that was able to help identify some of that. So there are pros and cons to that.
Our neighborhood watch the other day was somebody had some stones thrown at their house, and the message was sent around saying, could you just ask your children, their faces are very clearly on camera, and if they want to go around and apologize and pay for the damage, that'll all be sorted.
Oh.
And I thought, wow.
Yeah,
either that's a big double bluff, or that's someone going, you know what, just be honest about this.
Yeah. My days of leaving flaming poo on people's doorsteps and ringing the doorbell are over now. I just got to say,
you just can't do these things anymore. There's too many. But I tell you one thing I do like about on the home automation. So I've got a smoke alarm in here, which obviously is linked to all of the other smoke alarms. So if any smoke alarm in the whole property goes off, all of them go off, and then they all tell me where the one that's going off is. Mm-hmm. So it is quite funny if you're on a conference call and someone's cooking something in the house, sausages or whatever else, and you go, there's smoke in the hallway, and you go, oh, right, yes.
That's great. Anyway, we'll discuss more home automation features in the future, I'm sure. We've gone way over our time, but I think you'll agree that it's been fantastic having guests. Please leave a comment below if we agree that we should just replace Erich for Quentyn, and it'll just be an easier setup.
Thank you. No, I mean, we already agreed that that's what it's going to be.
Yes.
You have told him, haven't you?
He knows now.
Okay, good.
I better get severance pay.
Yeah. And then also sign the petition to get Quentyn put on the Muppets cover of because it does look like the intro to the Muppet Show. Everyone in their little boxes like singing away.
I thought it was blankety blank actually.
Oh,
I thought it was going to just be sitting there as the contestant and go, and I'll ask that person to answer the question for me. Did blankety blank make it to America?
I have no idea what that is, so I'm going to go with probably not.
You want to go and quickly go on YouTube for blankety blank? It was a wonderful show. You could win the blankety blank checkbook and pen.
Yes.
That's a life goal, right?
I know.
I never found out if the checkbook inside there was actually filled and whether you could spend money or whether it was a checkbook cover.
Yeah.
As a child, I assumed it was like infinite money.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're digressing again.
Cool. All right, then. Thank you very much for joining us all. We'll see you again next week on the Jerich Show or the Jav Q Show or the Q.
We'll doesn't work. I'll be back. Don't worry.
Jacuzzi. In fact, we can do it in a jacuzzi. This would be like the Naked Security Podcast.
Oh, no, I don't want to be on that one.
No. Okay. We're ending it there. See you next week.